This is your boy Leon D. We're going to talk about a lot of things on this podcast, primarily food. I like to talk about food a lot, but we're going to talk about food around the world. We're going to talk about some other things that's going to touch your heart or make you mad. It really don't matter, but I'm gonna tell you about it though. DJ Leon D. Peace. Let's get it on. This is DJ Leon D. We're going to get right back into it. Today's episode, we're going to talk about something that a lot of people get wrong. They get it totally wrong. And it's called low and slow or hot and fast. You got to know when to do when. And a lot of people get it totally wrong. And they don't know why they get it wrong. Let me tell you the difference in the two. First of all, the purpose of both techniques is to properly cook meat without overcooking it. It's pretty simple when you get down to the basics. Low and slow is for thick cuts of meat. Hot and fast are for your thin cuts. And now, I've said this 1,000 times. Low and slow are for your thick cuts of meat. It's going to make it tender. It's going to taste better. But some of you run out there and you think you know. Nah, you don't know. I can tell. Like, perfect example. When you hot and fast is when you're cooking ground meat. Because of the loose structure of ground meat, it reaches its internal temperature very quickly. And plus, ground meat don't have a skin to it. So there's nothing that's going to hold that moisture in. It's all going to drip over your smoker. Yes, it is. Check out a hamburger. A hamburger is always hot and fast. But I do mine low and slow. I put mine on my smoker and I cook it at 250, 225. And you know why I do that? Because you get a lot of smoke. You get a lot of smoke. And when you put it at 300, you're not getting no smoke. You get a lot of heat very, very quick. So, you cook stuff like fish, skirt steaks, and all these other thin kind of meats, or you get fatty meats. If you get fatty meats or very, very lean meats, like a skirt steak, go hot and fast. But there's some things that can go wrong though. The biggest one is that if you get distracted for a couple of seconds, you're going to burn it. And then when you burn meat, it's going to look like hockey pucks. I got friends that they cook a hamburger, and the hamburger is about 4 to 6 inches across. When they start, when they finish, it's about 1 inch across. Look like a damn hockey puck. And not only that, it's gonna be tough, because it's gonna be tough, dry meat. Because remember, there's nothing holding the moisture, and you also get a lot of flare-ups because all that fatty stuff is dripping on your smoker, and it's gonna fire up the coals or the pellets or whatever whatever you're using, whatever you're using. And see, some people like to do chicken legs hot. I don't really do fast. I don't do hot and fast at all. I just don't, because I seen things flare up. My Timberline caught on fire. I seen a lot of things. You gotta have a spray bottle with you, because it's gonna go wrong. It's gonna go wrong. So now, let me tell you about low and slow. My preferred method of doing this. The first thing you need to learn is that you should always have indirect heat when you're doing low and slow. You want the heat to circulate, so it's and what I said indirect. For those you don't know, the meat is not over the fire. That's called direct heat. It's not over the fire, and you don't have a lot of issues when you're doing indirect, because the fire is on your right or your left, and the meat's on the opposite side. And the heat is just circulating around the meat. So it's getting the top and the bottom because it's circulating. And if you don't have a fan, you already got a problem. But, your fan is going to circulate it around around the meat. So the two things I really, really like and I specialize in, and I mastered these before I ever gave a friend some food. That was a brisket and a pork butt, because they are fatty. They have a lot of tissue or muscle, and the moisture will get exposed to the hot temperatures, and the moisture will be gone. They lose moisture. They lose moisture very easily when they get a hot temperature, but they don't lose moisture very quick if they got a low temperature. And plus, one of the things too, if you want to create indirect heat, use a water tray or a charcoal grill. It's easy to set the charcoals on one side and just fire them up and have the other half of your charcoal pit with nothing in it, and put the meat on that side. It's easy. And plus, one thing that they don't tell you about a water pan, it makes meat juicier. It sure as the hell do, because all that moisture is coming up into the meat. So what you want to do is create humidity. Once you create humidity, then you're going to have just tender, juicy meat. And you're going to put a nice bark on your meat. Oh, yeah. You're going to have a nice bark. And the meat will stay juicy because the bark is going to hold that meat in. So, and the way you do it, too, is you put a little brown sugar on any meat. You're going to get a nice glaze and a nice bark. And so low and slow retains all the moisture when you're smoking meat, because the fats don't get to a high enough temperature to be forced out of the meat. So all the internal juices remain intact. So when you got a thin piece of meat, low and slow doesn't work very, very well. Nope, not at all. Because the meat would dry up. It would dry up. Perfect example. You take a thin piece of beef. You do low and slow, you're going to end up with beef jerky. And you don't want your brisket to taste like that. And if you got a tough piece of meat, I mean really tough, like tri-tip or brisket, low and slow is the only way to go. Nothing else will work. And you get all that smoky flavor in there. Let me tell you people about something that a lot of people get wrong. I went to a doctor one time, and she was about 500 pounds. And I'm thinking, what kind of doctor do I have here? She's a big girl. But she was not diabetic. Yeah, I was stunned too. 500 pounds, and she was not diabetic. And she said to me, Mr. Pollock, a lot of people think I'm a diabetic. I said, no shit. Hell, I thought you was too. She said, no, not at all. She said, I love Chick-fil-A, but even better, I grew up and my dad smoked food every single day. Now, the weight comes from he's smoking food, but smoking food is there's no medical deficit. In other words, there's nothing you're going to get disease-wise or anything else by eating smoky food. She said, not at all. She said, whether it's open fire, whether it's from a barbecue grill, there are no medical risk or medical problems. And I was like, okay, not a problem. So that's how it works. You have a choice, and the choice is what are you going to cook and how you want it to taste. And see, if you do low and slow, here's the one downside I can tell you. You got to have a thermometer. You got to have a thermometer. If you don't, you already got a problem. So I like a lot of smoky food, but you have to have a thermometer. If it's hot and fast, it's not going to take very long. That's why I said earlier, you got to pay attention to hot and fast. You can't sit there and talk to your buddies and have your back to it, because if you ain't careful, you're going to find yourself in a forest fire. You're going to find yourself in a forest fire fighting your way out, because hot and fast is going to drip. It's going to do all kinds of things, and you get a lot of flare-ups. So you have to be careful. Don't put your brand new smoker out there and put it on 400 degrees If you do that, do it just to test it out. But don't leave it on 400 degrees forever. It's not designed for that. It's designed so if you're going to cook a pizza, that pizza can get to 600 degrees, no problem. It's not designed for a brisket to be at 400 degrees. That's not how you cook food. Now, I know people who do cook briskets hot and fast, but I don't know anybody who cooked a good brisket hot and fast. No, I don't know anybody. And here's the thing. Some people say you can cook a 10-pound brisket, they say in 5 to 6 hours. I was in Texas and a guy did that. But what he did is that he cooked the brisket for a good 4.5 hours at 350 degrees. That last hour and a half, he dialed it down to like 225 because he got to 190 degrees hot and fast and then just dialed it down. But I'm going to tell you though, his brisket didn't taste as good as my briskets. No. I like for my briskets to start at room temperature and everything goes up. Same thing with the pork butt. Same thing with ribs. The same thing with chicken wings. I like my temperature, my food to start low and slow and go up. So it's a difference in them. You know, I mean, it's a huge difference in how you want to do it. But at the end of the day, like I said earlier, the goal is to not dry it out and not burn it. That's the goal. And with a thermometer, that won't happen. But when you do low and slow on thick pieces of meat, you give everybody in that meat a chance to dance. And when you go hot and fast, they're all dead before you know it. Yeah, the little guy in the meat is dead. And he don't know why. Now, let's talk about one thing. If you're going to sear any meats, you got to go hot and fast. But you shouldn't be searing many meats unless it's a piece of beef and maybe a couple pieces of pork. But beef, you can sear it. So you can't mess the beef up by searing it. Because most beef outside the thick cuts are designed to be seared. So that's a huge difference there. Now, you got searing and you got reverse searing. Know which one you're going to do. You know, beef, one of the few things that you can take out of the freezer and put it right on the grill. I would never do that unless it's ground beef. Any other kind of beef, I'm going to wash. I'm going to wash it before it goes on my grill and after I season it. Before I season it. So, hot and fast is also called the dry cooking method. And there's really no need to close your lid. There's no need to close your lid at all. You know, because the meat is going to be cooked and done quickly. And the meat on the grill is hotter than the actual temperature grill. It's actually hotter than the temperature on the grill. If you set your temperature to 350 degrees, and then by the time that food's finished cooking, it's going to be rendered at a higher temperature than what you think it is. You can have it set for 350, but I guarantee you that food's going to cook for a while. Matter of fact, let's talk about something. When you do hot and fast, you take it off, you measure internally, it says 210 before you take it off. When you take it off, it's going to get even hotter because the insides of that meat is going to cook well after maybe 3 or 4 minutes after you get done. So the inside is still cooking. It's going to raise the temperature. It's going to raise the temperature. So that's something you got to think about. You know, so when you do hot and fast, you get what you get. When you do low and slow, that temperature will raise a little bit, very little, and then it starts going down. Hot and fast ain't that way. Because it's like these little country girls. They fast as shit. Most of them are hot. They don't know when to stop until you're gone. Once you're gone, they stop. So that's how they all work. So think about it. If I want my brisket to be at 205 or 200 degrees, whatever your desired, limit is, if I want my temperature to be at 205, I take it off at 200 because I know when I take it off, it's gonna get to 205. So I'm not waiting for it to get to 205 and then take it off. No. At 200, I take it off. It's gonna get there. It is what it is. It's going to get there. And so don't think if you take it off at 205, like a lot of people do in competition barbecue, it's really going to get to about 211. It's going to get 5 to 6 degrees hotter after you take it off. And then when it comes down in temperature, that strictly depends on its environment. Outside, 95 degrees, it's going to take a minute. Outside, 50 degrees, it's going to be a lot quicker. And I did these measurements over the fall and the winter, just to see how long it would take for my brisket to get down to room temperature, because I take them inside the house, how long is it going to take at 70 degrees on the house temperature to get that brisket down to room temperature before I start slicing it. I did all these experiments because, some people are like barbecuologists like myself, but when you're a doctor of barbecuologist, you do a lot of scientific stuff just to feed your mind. But also, I tell people all the time, you should never guess when your food is going to be ready for your guest. You should never be guessing when it's going to be ready for your guest. You should know all that. When I tell you, hey, listen, I'm going to have your food ready at a certain time, because I done backward plan. Yeah, that brisket might have come off that smoker at 9 o'clock, but I'm telling you, be here at 12, because I know to go from 205 degrees down to 70 degrees in my house, it's going to take a couple hours, unless I put it on ice. And I'm not a big fan of that. I'm only a fan of cooling things off quicker than they should, only if you're catering and you got timelines and deadlines you got to meet. I'm not saying rush your cook. I'm saying rush the cooling off period, which is easy to do. And it's used by most people anyway. So that's just one of the things that is easy and very easy to do. But low and slow is always my preferred method. Because if you plan it right, your food will get done when it gets done. But you can almost know within a couple minutes or when it will be done. One of the things I do a lot that a lot of people don't do, I got about 10 timers around my house. If I'm cooking multiple meats at one time, I got a timer on each meat, because I'm not going to try and remember what time I started the chicken, what time I started the brisket, what time I started pulled pork. And if I got the chicken legs versus wings, it's different. And I don't really cook chicken breast, but my wife loves chicken breast. Don't get me wrong, I like breast, but just not chicken breast. But so I got a timer for both types of chicken. And if I'm doing bratwurst, I got a timer for my bratwurst, because I know they only gonna take a couple minutes. So I got timers all over the grills. And I situate them. And not only that, they're all color coded for each different meat. I color code them the same way people color code spatulas and other stuff you use to flip meat and touch meat with. I just color code them. When I see red, I know the chicken has been on there for 20 minutes. And I know internally I want it on there at that particular temperature. I want the chicken to be there for at least an hour, maybe 2. But it depends on the particular cut of chicken. If it's, and be honest about it, I don't buy, party wings. Never have bought those, never will. Some people love them. Let me tell you, I love them too. But I buy whole wings. Nothing like a whole wing. And if I want party wings, I take the whole wing and just cut it in two. You cut it at the joints. You now got your drum and your flat, and you now got party wings. So it's not like it's some great mystery. Here's the thing, and I never understood this. When I do low and slow, when you buy whole wings, every time that blade hits that chicken or that beef or whatever you're cooking, that's an additional cost. That blade is not cutting those wings into two because it's free. Nope, that blade is going to burn gas up. Someone has to watch it. Yep. That's how it goes. So every time that blade smashes down, so I'm always stunned when people buy party wings and the damn whole wings are a third of the price. It's the same thing that goes to when you buy chicken thighs and chicken drums or drumsticks. It's the same exact theory. So buy the buy the quarters and cut them yourself. It's really not a lot of work if you know how to cut wings and quarters and stuff. Just cut them at the joint and you're good to go. So this is your boy Leon D, and I'm just telling you, hot and fast doesn't work for me. I am definitely a low and slow man because it works. This is DJ Leon D. We're talking to you.